My name is Alyssa Nicoll. I am a Google developer expert, a scuba diver, a dog mommy, and I have 2 degrees. One is in psychology, and the other one is in web development. So it's kind of this weird marriage of 2 sciences that I sometimes like to do in talks. So I have the privilege to work for a company called Progress. My title is the Angular Developer Advocate for Kendo UI. Tara actually does all the React and Vue crazy nonsense. So I'm just here for the Angulars. Come talk to me afterwards if you also love Angular. And we actually have our own conference coming up. Check that out if you're interested. So my talk today, yes, is about innovation and how, in my opinion, it's not just about the technologies that we use, but also psychology. So I have quite a few interesting nuggets or ideas that I want to share with you guys this afternoon. And I'm going to start with this one. So it's a quote by Linda Holmes, who if, afterwards you're just like, yeah, that was right up my alley, definitely suggest you look up this article she has. I'll bring up 2 quotes during the talk from her, both awesome. So the first one, it is the recognition that well-read is not a destination. There's nowhere to get to. And if there was somewhere to get to, we would need 1,000 years to even think about getting there. Love that idea. So many of us, I've noticed in this industry, strive to be well-read as developers or designers. We want to know it all, we want to do it all. But why? I always stop to think, but why? Why are we doing that? Is it all in the name of just being well-read, or to be that person in the office? It's like, yeah, I've done that, right? I mean, who hasn't? So in my talk today, I'm going to examine our motives behind wanting it all and the cost it can bring us to being great. So why do we do what we do? Why do we try so hard? Why are we here, paying to be here, to listen to people talk? Maybe it's because we're lifelong learners. I know a ton of devs who fit that category. I think until the day they die, they will be learning new things. Maybe it's because we like to commune with our own kind. For me, that's one of my favorite parts about conferences, is being with nerddom and getting to say nerd jokes or dev jokes or just talk with people who speak my language and who like things that I like. But why is that? Could it be that there actually is something behind innovation more than technology? So we do what we do here, at home, at that crappy little coffee shop down the street, because we want to make our mark. We want to be great. And we're either terrified or we're ecstatic about that. I acknowledge that there's also a third category, and we will get to those people later. Call them the you-do-you bears. But for the sake of right now, let's say that there's 2 categories of human being or developer, right? The ones that are ecstatic or the ones that are terrified of doing something awesome. So here's the deal. Whether we're ecstatic or terrified, there are common pitfalls that I've noticed and found, or that others around me have found, that we need to watch out for. And these are the costs that come with being great. You know, the first time I gave this talk, I'm all about feedback. So please, if afterwards you're like, this is the worst talk I've ever heard in my life, I'd love to hear it. I know, I can take it. But any feedback you have. So the first time I gave this talk, I had 3 or 4 different devs come up to me because I asked, what do you struggle with? And then I went through, just in my mind at least, the common things that I thought all developers struggle with. And all 3 of them, and then later on, more people brought up fear. And I was really surprised when I heard this. At that time, I had never before experienced fear in development. It wasn't, I don't know, I'm a weirdo. I call myself a brave adventurer, and I think there are others out there like me. But new things, hard challenges, they excite me, right? I'm the one that's oh, you don't want a work feature? I'm gonna stare you down until you do, right? I'm in the console, why isn't it working? Why isn't it working? It's exciting to me, it's not scary. But I'm apparently a minority because I found so many people who came up to me afterwards and they'd be like, yeah, fear, big time. That's something you should talk about. And I was like, okay. So this could be fear of learning something in the face of something that's new, fear of the unknown, fear of getting stuck, fear of looking dumb, fear fear of something being too hard. And I have a story, so I actually have two stories. The first one is a small baby example of fear. So I was at a conference a year or so back. You guys are gonna laugh, it's nerdy. And I was up early because it was an international conference, and anytime I travel international, for some god-awful reason, I'm a morning person. And I'm always a morning person when I travel, and that is not the case at home. So I like to develop in the wee hours of night. So I was up crazy early at 6 a.m., kind of like staring at the locals, like, why are you up? Like, this is your time zone. And I was getting breakfast, I was smothering something onto a piece of bread. And behind me, I thought it was really interesting because I noticed two different sounds. And so from this half of the room, it was my own native language, and I could understand the conversation. And from this half of the room, we were a very broad mix. I think there was someone from every continent in the room. And from this half of the room, it was 3 or 4 different languages, and I was trying to pick them out. I was I think that's German, I think that one's French. And so I'm making my bagel, and I'm you're about to turn around and you have to pick where to sit. It's the dumbest thing, but I actually had this little moment of fear because I'm are you gonna sit with the people who speak your language? It's so special, it's so dumb. But I said this to myself, I said, Alyssa, be the change that you want to see in development. Yeah, I actually said that in my head. It was a super special moment. So I turned around and I went to the side that did not speak my language, and I had an incredible breakfast. I met so many people, and again, I think we represented everyone from every continent. It was awesome. And I think that's just a tiny example of fear. Obviously, you're ooh, big deal if you would have sat at the other table. It's not life-changing, but it might help you to recognize fear in yourself or in your own tech life. So a larger example of fear was when I left my first tech job. I was at code school teaching. And I worked there, I was really good at teaching, I had a huge passion for it, but I wanted to be a developer. And I don't know if any of you have ever taught online or in person in classes, but it's really, really hard to hone your dev skills and be the best at development while your full-time job is not development. And so I left my teaching job and I got a dev job. And this was just me taking a picture of the first ticket I got assigned, and I was so excited. I was you want me to fix that bug? It was legitimate, the best day of my life. I was so pumped. And that morning when I woke up, the first day of being a developer, I was oh God, what have I done? What have I done? I had this huge, horrible, have you ever had that feeling? It's right here, and it feels disgusting, and you just feel like death itself, yeah? I see one nod. I was what is this feeling? I'm analyzing myself, why do you feel like this, Alyssa? So yeah, no, it was fear. And I kept having these weird voices in my head go, you're not good enough for this, or they're gonna find out you have no idea what you're talking about. And yeah, so it was an amazing job. I freaking loved it. The only reason I left was because they wanted me to do Vue, and I was I'm out, which is, I know. I'm such a baby. I was I want to do Angular. But yeah, fear. So to you out there who might have that horrible, disgusting feeling right there, I want to tell you what I told myself that really got me through. It's okay to be afraid, but you cannot let it crush you, right? And then I would go and lean on my friends, my family, coworkers, other people in the community, all of whom are developers, to speak strength into me, because we cannot do this alone. We just can't be great alone. So these are the people in my life who can say hard things that are sometimes not great to hear, who speak raw truth into me. The first boss I ever had, I told you at code school, he was actually the CEO, and he would watch me record something. We do, audio only, or we do audio and video, and so I'd be in front of the green screen, and he would stop the camera and be Alyssa, do you know that sometimes when you record, you have this little girl voice? And I'm this, first job out of college, and I'm got it, no little girl, right? And then roll camera, right? And then he'd be like, stop me and be like, so I'm pretty sure that's not how Angular works. Let's just try that whole take again, right? So he was extremely blunt, but I got used to this raw truth that I just value so much now. And so I suggested everyone find at least one person like this. I know it could be overwhelming to be surrounded by those type of people, but just to have truth told to you. But make sure it's out of a love and a desire to make yourself better, or if you're giving that kind of advice, to make others better, and not to tear them down, because there's a huge difference between that kind of truth being told. So if you don't have winners in your life, in your job, at home, in your spare time, I'd suggest finding a new crowd, and where you're at right now is an amazing place to start, because I think it takes a support system to really be great in this industry. And I think being alone is the fastest way to be chewed up and spit out. And I've seen it time and time again, right? Devs just who are like, yeah, I was a developer. And I'm like, and you're not now? And they're like, no. And I'm like, let's hear that war story. So, so yes, I think there are another two types of people. One of them, fear motivates them, and they kind of get like an adrenaline rush from something new. And the other type of person is more like my husband, who's also a developer, and they sometimes struggle with a very real, very palpable sense of fear in the face of something new. Like his boss recently asked him, he's like, hey, will you learn Swift? And he's like, sure, I'll learn Swift, right? Like, whatever you say. And then he comes home and he's just like, I gotta learn Swift. This is gonna be awful. But different people have different reactions to new things. So it's really, really helpful to keep this in mind, even if it's not you, because that person coming to you, asking for help, try and remember that it's not easy to be bold and to, ask things that might make them look dumb. Be patient and understanding when you're teaching someone, because a harsh answer or a too quick response, like, yeah, this is how it works, you kind of like give them this glare, it might send them back into hiding, and that is not what we need in this industry. So I have another talk, and all of these upcoming slides, oh, you guys will so enjoy them. They are my gorgeous artwork. So I want you to just soak it in, because I know it's stunning, just stunning. So I have another talk, and this talk dives really, really deep into the next pitfall, but it's such an important one that I was like, I gotta throw it in there. I gotta bring it up. So it's all about the day I met Steve. So I was hanging out this is in my dev job, and I went to like a sister company office. I'm like still really new when it comes to corporate terms. I'll talk code with you all day long, but you want to get like outside of technical, and I'm like, yeah, sure. So it was a sister company, and we were at their office hanging out with their devs, and we were actually going to build a product for them because I guess their devs weren't good enough to build it. It was a really weird scenario. I was basically interviewing the dev going, so how did you make it? And like making notes of like how not to do it, because they were hiring me to remake what this person had made. And we'll call him Steve. And so I'm just hanging out with Steve, interviewing him, and Sally walks in. Sally works for this sister company. And she goes, Steve, I know we're not supposed to use special characters. You built us this form, and the clients call, and we fill out this form. And I want to use special characters. And Steve's like, yeah, I know that form. You can't use special characters. And Sally's like, yeah, but like quotes and stuff, because it was a fabric company. And she's like, so if I could use inches or, like the one single tick. And he's like, no. No special characters. Just type it out, Sally. And I was like sitting here watching this interaction, and she's like, yeah, but special characters would make our life so much easier, right? And that right there, I just want you to soak that in. That's a person who uses an app, who's coming to a developer, telling them this, like, to use special characters would make my life so much easier. And I'm like, I don't know how hard what language he was using is, but I'm like, in JavaScript, I'm like, I could give you special characters tonight, Sally, right? Like, and I'll never, ever forget what Steve said. Blew me out of the water. He said, I don't make the rules, I just write the code. What the heck? What does that even mean? Because I was like, I actually know that you wrote every piece of this code, like, from scratch. So technically you do make the rules? So yeah, this was me in the background watching this interaction, and I was just like, what just happened? So has anyone here met a Steve before? Oh, we got some hands. Oh, that makes me feel so much better. Not because of the amount of hands raised, but because of the amount of hands not raised. Because I was like this, like, these people exist in our world? Like, there were no flips given, like, at all. And so, of course, being my analytical self, I was like, why is Steve like this? And I watched him the rest of the day and got some war stories from him, and he'd been in the industry for like bajillion years. It's just forever. Burnout. Very, very real. Very, very prevalent. And that is what this entire talk, this other talk that I have, is about. But it's so important that I had to bring it up. And there was a study by Dr. Jerry, and she described burnout, and I thought it was a beautiful, terrible description. The vacant shell of a burned out building. It's ugly, it's nasty, it affects every part of your day. And I'll go to say that it affects every part of everyone else's day too. Because it surely affected Sally's day, and I'm pretty sure it affects whoever he goes home to. And so as I started studying burnout more and more, so this quote is also beautiful and horrible. Burned out workers feel like a cog in a machine. You're not human anymore, and nobody cares. And that was Dr. Jerry as well. So as I started studying this more and more, I was like, because I'd studied psychology, obviously I'd heard of this term before, and I saw firsthand what it did to his job as a developer and what it was doing to him mentally. But something that completely blew my mind was that there were physical symptoms associated with burnout. And I was like it's like a disease almost. So not just fatigue, but sheer exhaustion. Irritability. Steve, yeah. Inability to concentrate. Now that one I was like, yeah, ADHD, because that's me. But this is a whole package, remember. And this one was like a jaw dropper. Chronic acute disease. I was like, now what now? And so I had to keep digging, because chronic acute disease, what does that even mean? So Dr. Jerry definitely suggests looking up her study. She would work with burnout people who were burned out from their work, and there were a lot of people that while she was helping with therapy would get out of their jobs, because a lot of times it's not always the job, but a lot of times it was the job, and they were just completely burned out from it. But this just blew my mind. 10% of burnout patients in her study, after leaving the organization, right? So these people got out. They were in a better place. They weren't hopefully burned out anymore. I know that the time actually to get out of burnout, even if you get out of the situation, is significant. But essentially, they got out of the toxic environment. 10% of these people developed cancer. I was like, this can't be real, and kept digging, and it was. I mean, her study was phenomenal, and it kind of makes me want to pause on Dev a little bit to dig more into it. But this is so incredibly real and so incredibly wow. And obviously, it's not causation. It was one of the reasons I left psychology, was because I was like, so you're saying after all of this statistics and all of this hard clinical work I just did, I can't say this did this? And they're like, no. And I'm like, okay. So there's a correlation there, but it's still too big of a correlation for me to be comfortable with. So actively harming those they set out to help. This is kind of my key takeaway for burnout, and just something to keep in the back of your mind for yourself or for other coworkers, because that's definitely what Steve was doing. What can we do, Alyssa? Oh, man, I don't know if that's real. I always look at my handwriting and I'm like, is that legible or no? I said, sorry. So this is me hanging out with this shark. It was so fun. Oh my gosh, I scuba dive. And me and my husband were sitting there on the sand, and all the other developers, all the other scuba divers were swimming around and looking for stuff, and we were just chilling on the sand. So of course they ran out of air much faster and they went up. And so we're just chilling there, and these two sharks start to circle. And I was like, yes! I know, it's usually, they're like big water puppies. They're really not terrifying. Most people are like, it's really, no. I mean, if it was a great white, I might get out of the water, but. So we're sitting there and they circle and we hold out our hands and they like brush up against our hands, and I'm just like, this is so fun, right? What can we do for burnout? Something that I've read up in studies, but also experienced myself, is have something else in your life that you can pour yourself into. Sounds super simple. Sadly, one of my best friends doesn't even know how to do it. Like, he is consumed with development, night and day, just like all he does. And like, I actually have this real quick. We're gonna go out of this. What? You're gonna go out of your slide deck? Yes, I know, I'm horrible. I have this picture. It's a comic and it's actually like perfect for this. So we're gonna play it. Which is me some nights, but not every night. So this guy's like, oh man, it's 3 a.m. I should really get off the computer and go to bed. I know, right? Yeah. Okay, so it's me every night, but I still have other things that I pour myself into. And I think when you're asking yourself, what can we do to avoid burnout? Having something else, anything else that you can pour your life into. It's kind of like the whole Elon Musk wants to go to Mars thing, and I think he actually said this. It was like, so that we don't have all our eggs in one basket, meaning like humans. I'm like, wow, that's such a positive way of looking at it. But no, don't have all your eggs in one basket. Don't invest all in one thing. And my second thing for you is, do you remember how you got here? I don't mean in this room. I mean in development or in the tech industry in general. What passion once burned in you? So I know that not everyone is as insane as me, and it's just like, yes, programming, right? For me, it was, this is a spyglass. Again, my drawing is not optimal, but it's like being a code detective for me. I sign in and I look at all my JIRA tickets and I'm like, what bug are we gonna solve this morning, Scotty, right? Like, I'm just so freaking pumped. I love it. I love finding out why code works or why it doesn't work, and I love even more finding out what the client needs and how I can meet that with code. So for me, whenever I start to feel like, oh, you want me to build a what? Okay. It's nice to remember why I got in this industry in the first place. What are your most meaningful reasons for being a developer? So I'm just asking the same question in different ways, because sometimes you're just like, I don't know. What do you mean, what passion? I have no passion, right? So just asking it to hopefully you can have that. And if you do, you're like, yes, it was this thing. Come up to me afterwards. I want to hear your story. If we can find something that connects us to, like, beyond the ones and zeros, then we can often avoid burnout altogether. Innovation is not just about technology, but psychology as well. We do what we do because we're either terrified or ecstatic to make our mark. So even if you're sitting in the audience and you're thinking, nope, I've never experienced fear. Just haven't. Like, you chuckle. That was me. Like, I was like, what do you mean fear? Or if you've never experienced burnout and you're just like, what is she talking about? Go away. No. So the fact that there are people sitting right next to you, there are coworkers, co-designers, people from marketing, I don't know. There are people who feel afraid in the face of something new. Or there are people who are trudging through this haze of burnout and despair, right? That should be important to us. So even if it's not you personally, keeping that in mind so that we can hopefully give our friends a helping hand through those things, right? Like, it's gonna make us a better dev community as a whole. So I use the word winner and wiener as synonyms. They're really close, and that little kid makes me happy. I really do. I like to twist words around, and so people in my life are used to it. But yes, so surrounded by wieners or winners, it's vital to surround ourselves with these people. And they're the ones that I kind of talked about earlier that will ask us those hard questions. They're the ones that push us to be better, right? These people who challenge us and who teach us without knowing it. I don't know if you can think of someone in your life like that. I've got a couple of devs like that who, like they'll be on their phones late at night, like reading, and the next morning they'll be like, did you know this works like this? Or do you know browsers have blah, blah, blah? And I'm like, show me more, right? So being surrounded by those kind of people has just like rocketed me, like in my career and in my happiness in my career. So if you don't have some wieners, you should find some, because man, it's been so much easier surrounded by those type of people. I can't tell you how many times I've been called passionate. It's actually, we used to have this company, if you're a manager, don't do this. I'm not telling you this to like bring this to your company. But we used to have these compliment lines. Has anyone here been a part of a compliment line? Oh, bless you all. Gosh, it's just, we're talking like the whole company would line up and like split in two, so you're facing, and you weren't allowed to say anything back to the compliment. You could only say thank you. And if you were on this side of the line, you had to give compliments. If you were on this side of the line, you had to receive compliments. And there was like a 1-minute egg timer. Oh my God. I would be sitting in the bathroom like sweating, just like, because to me, if I didn't think of this like super valuable compliment for someone else, like I would feel like a horrible person, because I'm like standing across from them for 60 seconds, and 60 seconds is a long time, you guys. Like, oh my God. So I cannot tell you how many times in that line, like year after year, I'd be told I was passionate, and I would like have to try to keep a smile on my face, because I'm like, yes, I'm passionate. Like, because I just like was sweating in the bathroom for you, trying to think of like the perfect compliment, and you're just gonna say the word passionate. Anyways, so I've been told this a lot. And it's obvious. I'm excited to learn. I'm brimming with questions, staring down those error codes, right? It's fun. But I can't tell you how many of my friends are not in a place of passion, but in a place of complacency. And I like to call it the SWW Club. Jack Johnson, anybody? No? Come on, guys. I've been sitting, waiting, wishing. Yeah? Like, okay. So I call it the Sitting, Waiting, and Wishing Club, because that's what they're doing with their lives, with their careers. They're just kind of like waiting for something to happen. I don't know what that is. They have this attitude of complacency, and they seem to think that sitting, waiting, and wishing is the way to be. But have no fear. If you or someone you love is a part of this club, I have a 3-step plan to help you out. Ask why more. Too many devs just soak it up. They're like, cool, it works that way. I'm like over there going, but why? Like, and I know it can be annoying to always dig into things, and that's not what I'm telling you to do, but if you're not asking why while you're learning something new, or you're using something that you've used for a ton of years, then I have to ask, are you learning at all? Are you growing? Are you on your way to greatness? Teach is number 2. Like I said, the most influential devs in my life, they cannot help but teach. Some people I know do it professionally. Some just do it on the side, like at the coffee break or whatever. They'll be like showing me new things. But teaching others is such a core part of these developers. And I really think that's what it takes in this industry. You can't wait around to be like spoon-fed. You have to teach others, but mainly you have to teach yourself. And this can really help with the SWW, the sitting, waiting, and wishing. Another thing, my last thing, to help you out of your SWW blues is to want more. So, I have a good job. I'm gonna go back to this slide. Not because it was prettier. So yes, I have a good job. I know what I'm doing. I've got great benefits. I got friends around me. This was like me in my first job. I would go in and teach, get in front of the green screen, and my boss was like, should we order lunch? And I'm like, no, don't order lunch. And he's like, yeah, but most people take the whole day to record and then some of the next day. And I'm like, don't order lunch. We're gonna be done by lunch. We're leaving by lunch. And he's like, okay. We get out of there at like noon, and he's like, I ordered lunch. And I'm like, oh, like, he's like, you're just so good. And I'm like, I know. I need to find a new job. And that sounds so weird, but like, if I didn't have that challenge, or I guess if I didn't feel like I was swimming through an avalanche of stuff I didn't know, I wouldn't be happy. And I don't think there are a lot of people out there like that. But I do know what complacency or stagnation looks like. And it's a slippery slope to burnout. And I think you're all so much better than being spit out of this industry. So ask yourself if you're growing. Ask yourself if you're challenged. If you have people in your life that challenge you, if you have a job that challenges you. But most of all, want more, right? Because you guys, every single one of you is worth it. Want more out of your careers and want more out of your life. Innovation is not just about the technologies that we use, but about the psychology behind why we do what we do. Understanding our motives is just one small part, and sadly, we don't have time for many. I want to go back to the quote that I opened with, and again, Linda Holmes is her name. So the sad, beautiful fact is that we're going to miss almost everything. Statistically speaking, you will die having missed almost everything. And that was in her article as well. And when I was reading that, I was like, well then, thanks, Linda. Like, I mean, if you think about it, not just in our industry, but in life itself, there's just too much to do, too much to learn. And I was really depressed because I want to do it all, right? I want to learn it all. But admitting this fact, it's freed me up to be a better person and to love the things that I really want to love more. What do I mean by that? So at this point, when we're staring at our ever-changing, ever-growing industry that's like, we have two options to handle the surge of things that are thrown at us daily: culling or surrendering. Has anyone ever heard of cull or culling? The verb of cull. Woo-hoo! We've got 1, 2, 3, yes! 4 people. 5. Okay. So culling is the easy part. Culling is the process of getting rid of things in your life that you don't enjoy. Right? It sounds pretty easy. I mean, it's actually a lot harder than that. But I want you guys to think for a minute. What drains your ponder Gore? And that is I have like these weird friends on Twitter that like I've never actually met IRL. But like they're like some of my best friends because they're just so witty, or they like are amazing at tech or whatever. And one time this guy was talking to me and he was like, yeah, ponder Gore. And I was like, is that a word for brain? And he was like, it is. I made it up just now. And I'm like, yes, okay, using that. But what drains your ponder Gore, right? What zaps your energy away during the day? Here's the good one. What task do you procrastinate on until guilt just overwhelms you and you just have to do it, right? Like, so it's difficult to say, just stop doing that, right? Like, because for me, the biggest thing was emails. Oh my gosh, emails. They're just, I don't know why, it just somehow gets in the thousands, like in an instant, and I'm like mini panic attack when I open my inbox. But so I realized that not everything in your life you can get rid of. There are some tasks, though, if we get real honest, that you could be like, hey, boss person in my life, really hate writing APIs. I'd really love to do more CSS stuff. Tara's probably laughing so hard right now. She's my counterpart at Progress, and she is a back-end girl through and through, and I'm like, CSS rules. So, but I know there are parts of our job that you're not great at or you just really hate, and some of those things you might be able to cull out of your life. But for the rest, consolidation. So consolidation, what do I mean by that? Well, email, perfect example. Pick a time of day, and that's your email hour or whatever you need for your email. And outside of that, you get to do what you love. You get to do the part of your job that makes you happy. Or maybe you can consolidate the tasks that you really hate to one day of the week, and it can just be like, oh, this is the death day for me, right? And then the rest of the week you get to frolic in the fields of happiness. So consolidation or culling. The next part is not, you're like, yeah, that wasn't easy, so this is supposed to be harder. Yes, surrendering is harder. So outside of culling, the other option is to surrender. There are so many things that I like and so many things that I'm good at or that I want to pursue. But if we're honest, time is our most precious, valuable, and rare asset in this life. And we don't have the time. So deciding on what's truly important to you and just surrendering the rest, it's really going to free you up. Because it's like, I know everything there is about web development, and you're on this level. Or I know everything there is to know about Angular, right? And you're on the deeper dive level. And I think you get a much more rich experience if you can at least go a little bit deeper than trying to know it all and trying to do it all. Linda. One day I'm going to meet her and she's going to be like, stop quoting me. No. It's time to surrender and admit the sad, beautiful fact that you will never be able to do it all. And it is sad, but it's beautiful because admitting this and actually activating this in your life, it really does set you free to chase down the things that you're the most excited about, that you care about the most. I had this one guy come up to me after one of my talks and he was like, how do I get to be you? So I'm going to go through what was going through my brain because it was really weird at that moment. I was like, a woman? I don't know why. I don't control what happens up here. But I was like, no, I'm pretty sure he's not asking me how does he get to be a woman. Okay, what could he mean? A developer? I'm like, well, we're at a tech conference. Most of these people are developers. I'm pretty sure he's not asking how do I get to be a developer. And this is all happening, I'm probably reacting really slow to his question because this is all going on in my brain. And I finally landed on Google Developer Expert and I was like, do you want to be a GDE? And he was like, yes! And I'm like, oh, half the problem in development is asking the right question, right? So I talked to them a bit, but I thought it was really interesting and I've actually had this conversation a couple times now of how do I get to be known? It's not everyone's passion. My husband, for example, would absolutely die if you asked him to be on stage. But for me, I just love it. I freaking love getting to share any kind of knowledge with people. So if you're one of those type, and you're like, how do I get to be known? Real quick side branch, there are 2 paths to get there. I bet you guys can't guess those paths. Oh, golly. So the first one is technology. Anyone want to guess the second? Oh, I heard it. Yeah, thanks. I know, it was, whew. So technology, what do I mean by that? I know these are just bullet points on a slide, but I've actually seen friends of mine use every single one of these bullet points to make it big. I don't know what make it big means for you. For some of them, it was working for Microsoft, working for Google, having a bajillion followers on Twitter. I don't know. But I have seen my friends make their dreams through technology in these 3 ways. Open source, online courses, teaching others, and Stack Overflow. I've actually seen someone make it big because of Stack Overflow. That one was kind of weird. But the moral of the story is helping others in some way through technology. And it all came down to this bottom line of brilliant programming. I'd sit down with every single one of these people and talk through code, and it was just looking at a symphony in their code. I don't know if you've ever met someone like that where they make you feel a little don't look at my code, let's just look at your code. But I did not take this way. I work on being a better programmer every day of my life, and this will always be the side of my life that I reach for and I have to work at because it's not easy for me. But there are brilliant programmers in this audience right now, and if you want to make it big, that's what you're going to have to lean into. Number 2, the way that I did it, psychology, guess, yeah. So obviously, through speaking, hi, I'm on stage, doing community work, I actually, up until I think my 3rd job, I never did an interview to get a job. I know it sounds weird, but my first job, I went to bar camp, which is kind of like ConFoo, foo bar, but it was bar camp. Every time I wear my shirt, someone's like, are you a bartender? I'm like, close, I'm a developer. And they just don't laugh because they don't get it. Again, that's why I love being here, because you know what bar camp means. You're not It's an alcohol bar. Anyways, I digress. So I would go to things like bar camp, and I'd do little talks about, my first one was like common pitfalls of web students, which is very similar to this one, but I guess a baby version. And I met my first boss there, and we exchanged numbers, got to talking, got some drinks. And the day before I graduated, he texted me, and he was like, has anyone scooped you up yet? And I was like, no. And he's like, come into the office on Monday. I was like, I'll be there. Where's the office? And I walked in, and no one knew who I was. They were like, oh, I guess that's the girl Greg hired. Like, it was really weird. But I didn't do an interview. And I was like, so what's the job? What are we doing here, right? Like, and through psychology, through people skills, through socializing, I've gotten quite a gig and expanded the social network. So, you can lean hard into the brilliant programming, or you can lean hard into the people, right? The psychology behind things. I told you there's a third kind of person, and I call them hibernation bears, and you know who you are. And if this talk didn't do anything for you, if you're fine, you're just chilling in your job, you're good at what you do, and you're happy with it, that's perfectly fine, right? Like climbing ladders, going places, being insanely passionate, it's not for everyone, and I recognize that. So if you're that person, I want you to acknowledge it, own it, and you do you, right? So if you're a hibernation bear, keep on going, you're fine. So I want you guys to walk away with a couple things. The first one, be thoughtful and intentional. Innovation is not just about the technologies we use. We so often focus on that because, it's right in front of us. It's what we do every day. But sometimes it might help to take a couple centimeters back and look at the psychology behind things as well. And a brilliant programmer told me this one time after one of my talks, and I thought it was just something that I had to bring up. I think it sums up this talk quite nicely. A good surfer knows when to get on a wave, but they also know when to get off it. So take care of yourselves, and just you do you guys. Thank you so much.